This one. If someone were to say Kyrie Irving is the answer for the Lakers, is that McNuts?
I don't think this is McNuts, and I know we're going to get into this, but in terms of the basketball of it all, this is not Russell Westbrook. I actually think it works, and of course, Kyrie and LeBron have history together, and it's been rumored for a couple seasons now in terms of them wanting to team up. The basketball of Kyrie is never in question.
All right, put a pin in that one because I'm going to come back to it shortly. But let's talk about Anthony Davis. If someone were to say the days of Davis as a dominant force on both ends of the floor are over, is that McNuts?
That would be McNuts, and I would ask them, why do they feel this way? We need to discuss it in some sort of basketball therapy. What Anthony Davis was able to do over the course of this Western Conference Finals run was continue to remind you of what he is on the defensive end. He's a force, he's a stopper. Everybody had to acknowledge where he was on the floor. He also has the capability to have scoring outbursts. He may not be a guy that does it at a high number consistently, but everybody's acting like he played terrible. The Nuggets are really good.
Okay, so that brings us back to where we were yesterday when J.J. Redick was here, and he and I had something of a debate over whether or not Anthony Davis can be the player to carry the Lakers or any team. Here's what J.J. said.
No matter how much we try to make Anthony Davis into this alpha, that's not who he is. He's a fantastic basketball player, an all-NBA player, an all-defensive player. He's not an alpha, no matter how hard we try, no matter how hard we try to spin the narrative. That's not who he is. He's awesome, but that's not who he is. And the fact that he's not the best player in the world, or not the best player in the Lakers, that speaks more to LeBron not being human.
Okay, so this was a really good discussion yesterday, and every time we got to it, I kept saying we need more time for this, and unfortunately the show was only 2 hours long. So I want to dive into this. Wendy, I'll start with you because the historical perspective on this stuff I think is fascinating. If there's one thing of which I think I can be fairly accused in this is that I am holding Anthony Davis to a standard that perhaps is unrealistic, which is to say, I remember a time when we thought he was on the verge of being the best player in the NBA. I remember standing at this wall, we call this the South Wall on Get Up, when the Lakers acquired him and putting together a list of the greatest duos in NBA history and wondering where LeBron James and Anthony Davis were going to belong on that list. So that is the standard that perhaps and I think what JJ is saying is that's not a realistic standard for this player. Brian Windhorst, how do you see it?
Yeah, he's been a perennial all-star. He has a championship. He was huge in that championship run. He was great in this run for the Lakers, not every game. He has a decade-long career where he has shown flashes of absolute dominance. He has shown flashes of times when he has, becomes a wallflower, and he has injury issues. Those are all who Anthony Davis is. I don't know why anybody expects anything different of him. He is extremely valuable as a player. The Lakers are very fortunate to have him. They gave up a ton to get him, and I don't think really have ever truly regretted it because they have a banner up there because of it. And just because he is not as good as Nikola Jokic, is not as dominant as Nikola Jokic, which we just saw that Jokic is the MVP of the two. Jokic is the guy who dominates every night. Doesn't mean he's not an incredibly valuable player who's probably headed for the Hall of Fame.
How about it, VC? What you obviously been out there on the floor with him, against him, all that sort of thing. How do you see it?
Well, you know why people expect it or think so? Because they've seen flashes of it. And then you think when you see flashes of it, what's the obvious? We want more. We want more, and we think that there's more there. And like everyone is saying, maybe not. Yeah, because there's been flashes. There's been times when LeBron was hurt. We said Anthony Davis needs to be the go-to guy. Anthony Davis needs to be the alpha. Now, when he did that, it was like, oh, can he carry that on the floor when LeBron's on the floor? He did that for a stint as well. So, yes, it's there, but that's not a sustainable thing for Anthony Davis. So I don't think I've said multiple times he needs to be the alpha guy for this team, and he needs to carry on that mentality. But you need to put another star that has that with him for like we've seen. So when situations like when Anthony Davis does not have it, you go on to the next. That's what LeBron was like, okay, let me take over. But as far as him being that guy all the time, that's not who he is.
Let me get
Monica the final. Because
yeah.
He's a damn good player.
He's a damn good player. No one is disputing that. But I think Look, I'm just old enough to remember a time when the expectation of him was to be more than a damn good player. There were a lot of damn good players in the NBA.
Right.
Anthony Davis looked like he was going to be the next great one. He looked like he was going to be what Nikola Jokic has become, Monica, I think is the point I'm trying to make.
And I understand that, Greeny, but on the flip side, did you predict Nikola Jokic would be as good as he has been?
Of course not.
And so I think to a degree, this is the experience of being a member of the media, an NBA fan. I think if we can't let go of who Anthony Davis is, grand scheme of things, in basketball and in life in general, when you start trying to be somebody you're not, that's when you run into more problems.
Yeah.
I remember standing here with you in February when LeBron James goes down with a foot injury, and we're all discussing this is an opportunity for Anthony Davis to lead. And he did. He averaged almost 30 points, 27 and change while LeBron was out, and helped that team get to a position that was able to have them ultimately wind up in the Western Conference Finals.
All right, that's fair. All of that is fair, and I think it's all a reasonable conversation. Now, I want to go back to the pin that I put in the conversation earlier.